Well, kind of continuation of the Sermon on the Mount, and been doing a lot of thinking and rethinking of my life going through this. Jesus wants us to be our righteousness to surpass that of the Pharisees. Back then, the Pharisees were the ones in power, and they were the ones who everybody uh, saw as the authority figures religiously, and they are the ones that looked down and helped us little people. But Jesus says that he said that if our righteousness didn't surpass theirs, then we wouldn't see the kingdom of heaven. I'm so glad that we have the Sermon on the Mount, because God gives us specifically what he's expecting out of his followers. This is what we need to do as Christians. And he's starting off, the 5 and all of chapter 5 with, I'm going to give it a word, just one word: disposition. The word is disposition. This is what our disposition must be like. There's the Beatitudes, kind of the front door of describing what our attitude should be like, even to the point of being salt and light, how our disposition will bring us to the point of surpassing righteousness in such a way that we don't have to show it off. It'll be salt. It'll be light. People will recognize it in us. And then he talked to us about the law and how it's not going to change until everything comes together at the end. And then he talked about anger, which I came across an interesting thought the other day about anger. He talked to us about anger. You've heard it said, don't murder, don't kill. But I tell you, don't speak bad, don't get angry, don't get yourself in a position where you would take physical violence like that. And then he jumps straight into sacrifice, how if we bring our offering to the sacrifice and God leads us to think of somebody that we have sinned, that we have done something wrong, we need to leave that sacrifice at the altar and go and be restituted, reconcile with our brother or sister, whoever it is. And here's what Jesus is pointing out. Back then, there was only one place on all the earth for them to offer a sacrifice. One place. And if you lived 5 days away, can you imagine how frustrating that would be? You leave home with everything that you need. You get there, you buy what else you need. You go through the process of cleansing, getting ready to offer the sacrifice, and you get all the way up to the altar. And God says, you need to go make this right. Jesus says, you leave that sacrifice right where it's at, and you travel back that 5 days. You find that person that you sinned against, and you make it right with them. And then you can travel that 5 days back. Go through the whole process of being cleansed again. And then you can offer your sacrifice. That's a lot of work. Well, yes, it is a lot of work. Because according to Proverbs 15, God opposes the sacrifices of the wicked. But he loves the prayer of the righteous. Our relationships with each other has a direct bearing on whether or not God accepts our sacrifices. And our willingness to reconcile has something to do that too. But let's get all caught up here. There's that. There's remaining our relationships faithful, and he uses adultery, the marriage relationship, to talk about that, as well as hard-heartedness. I was talking about divorce. But then he turns into verse 33 of chapter 5 about vows. And again, Scripture, God is wanting our lives to be as uncomplicated as possible. Uncomplicated. And here he says, don't don't take any vows. Don't make any oaths according to God in heaven, because that's His throne room, or make an oath to the earth, basing it on earth, because that's His footstool. And then don't you dare go and make an oath and swear by Jerusalem, because that's the city. That's the city of the great King. And don't swear by your own head, because you can't make gray hair black or black hair gray. Just let your yes be yes and your no be no. If somebody says, can you do this? Yes, I will do this. Or no, I won't. Can you imagine how much more simple your life will be? Then he goes into turning the other cheek. Oh, that's always a good one, isn't it? Especially this culture that we are in today. You've heard it said, you've heard that the law of Moses says, if an eye is injured, injure the eye of the person who injured it. If a tooth gets knocked out, knock out the tooth of that person who did it. Ouch. Let me move this. And basically he's saying, if somebody slaps you on the one cheek, turn the other. I say, don't resist an evil person. If you're slapped on the right cheek, turn the other cheek. If you are ordered to court and your shirt is taken from you, give your coat too. If a soldier demands that you carry his gear for a mile, carry it 2 miles. Give to those who ask, and don't turn away from those who want to borrow. Ultimately, true justice is not revenge. True justice is not violent. True justice goes the extra mile. When I was a youth pastor, I had some kids in my youth, brilliant kids, obviously, because they grabbed a hold of the Exodus passage about if somebody hurt you, or if you hurt somebody, they get the judge determines the punishment. Justice versus revenge. And they ask, that they didn't ask. They pointed out that means if somebody hurts me, I can turn around and hurt them back. And I said, well, let's take a look at it this way. What it means is if you hurt someone, you have to be willing for that to happen back to you. They didn't like that. They didn't like it at all. I don't blame them, because it turned it around to disposition. Let your yes be yes. Let your disposition be just the simple answer. Let your disposition be in such a way that you don't do wrong to others. Violence does not solve issues. Usually the person who goes to violence first has lost the argument. If in a relationship it gets violent, now listen closely to me. Listen very closely to me. If it gets violent and you've done everything you possibly can do, it's time to back away from that relationship. Because it's no longer about communication, it's about control. So, revenge is not the answer. Getting out of that relationship is the answer. The third is the next level of kindness, compassion, love. Jesus says, you have heard that the law of Moses says, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. Now, that's never taught in Scripture. But Jesus says, you've heard it said, that this is what it says. But I say, love your enemies. Pray for those who persecute you. In that way, you will be acting as true children of your Father in heaven. For he gives his sunlight to both the evil and the good. He sends the rain to the just and the unjust. You love If you love only those who love you, what good is that? Even the corrupt tax collectors do that much. If you are kind only to your friends, how are you different from anyone else? Even pagans do that. And you are to be perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. That's some tough stuff there. It's next level. It's next level disposition. Question: what about this does not work for you? If we do what anybody can do, how does that make us as Christians different than them? How does it even make us ready to surpass the righteousness of Pharisees? Verse 48 says, our goal is to be perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. We're not going to be faultless, but our righteousness can surpass that of Pharisees. Disposition is very important. We're going to look at next chapter 6 on about about acts of righteousness. And our heart, our mind, our spirit has to be in the right disposition in order for acts of righteousness to be good, to be true. Thank you for your time. We'll talk to you later.